Well, guys, one person asked for it, or at least one person, and that's good enough for me. Tonight, I am giving you my second place shop challenge standard format Royal Paladin deck. That's right. With this deck, I almost won and made it. I actually got, naturally, as is always the case when you think you're about to do good at Vanguard, I got grade locked, and then my opponent double critted me while I was at 3 damage. But well, hey, that's the tournament, and the guy who won did genuinely deserve it. He's a great player, won with Oracle Think Tank, not that big a shock. But here I am to present to you how I was able to get so far with the deck that a lot of people say is actually kind of bad. And I'm not going to sit here and say that, no, it's secretly a brilliant deck. No, Royals have a lot of problems, namely in the way they handle their cost payments, i.e. they run out of counterblasts too quickly, and the ways they Soul Blast can also be conflicting if you're trying to set up Soul Saver, but you just need to use other effects. So I don't think this is a great deck, but, well, it was kind of... I only have like 2 decks, and so it was either this or Tachi's, which I actually just finished the other day and hadn't had enough practice yet to the point where I felt comfortable going into the event with this, so I went with this deck, and hey, obviously it worked out pretty well. So first up, before I really get into the profile, I just want to say what my mentality was when working with the deck. My theory is that for Royals, you don't necessarily want to focus completely on sack builds or board builds. I wanted to focus on consistency builds. I wanted to keep getting my hands good. I wanted to keep having units to call because Kagura will just blow them up next round. And that's kind of how I built the deck and how I played it. I felt that the best way to do it was to control the best thing you is, and weirdly enough, that's thinning and drawing and adding to hand. So that's kind of how I won it. So I know I've rambled on a little bit. Without further ado, let's get started. First up, the starter. Obviously, we all got to play the same starter for each deck, but I like these starters. Drawing is always nice, actually kind of works great with the build and how I play the deck, and it doesn't allow for decks to be a little bit unfair by just having an overly powerful starter. I'm looking at you, Judge Bow Revenger. Then triggers, we have 8 crit. Obviously, I know I just said that I didn't want to focus too heavily on sacking and more consistency, but I felt the 8 crit is the best way to do it, especially when you make your power plays at the end of the game. Obviously, for one of the best girls in the deck, Isolt, the perfect guard being a draw trigger. A allows you to play draws, which I was kind of missing for a while there, because most of my decks only use stands, and it's also good because you can use more grade 1, so I quite like it. Then we also have, of course, 4 heal triggers. I don't want to die. So that's that. And here's my first interesting little tech. I don't see a lot of people doing this. 2 Knight of Rose Morgana as being like that extra grade 1. Why? Because, well, sometimes you just need that extra power. Sometimes you just need an extra 9k, and it actually comes up quite a bit, especially because with how often not people will either aim their attacks at my rear guards, or my rear guards get blown up again in the Kagero matchup. So having something that can just hit for a big number is great, especially in grade 1 form, since the grade 2 lineup for me is very tight. So yeah, she really puts in work. Next, we have the next 4 grade 1s, Knight Squire Allen. What I like about this guy is that he draws, you just call something from the hand, and the best part, since that makes him an 11k, he can actually become very useful when you try to rush your opponent while they're at grade 2. So you can essentially get 3 attackers pretty much without really going that minus in the hand. Really nice card. Next, of course, we have 4 Little Sage Marin. This also really comes in handy a lot. The fact that its skill isn't on hit, which always seems to be the problem with decks I play, i.e. a lot of the Brave builds and a lot of my Gold Paladin builds, having something that is just whenever something is cold in front of it really is great, and I quite love him for that. And again, similar to Alan, he's a drawer, he's an 11k. If I ever have the choice between riding Alan or Marin, I'll actually ride Alan because I can always get Marin's effect later, and Marin being an AK allows for rushing when I go second, which can come in handy a lot. Moving on, we of course have 4 Pongal, pretty self-explanatory. You search it off of Kane, it builds soul for your Soul Saver Dragon, and of course things like Blaster Blade, and another sort of controversial choice in here uses Pongal really well. So I quite like him, and at one point that 5k from putting a trigger in the soul actually helped win a game. So I really do like the card. Then of course we have 4 Blaster Blade, pretty self-explanatory. They made the whole deck based around him because anime logic. The critical never comes up. I think I've maybe done that once, and that was just like the first night I got the trial deck just to see if I could do it. The second effect can come in handy a lot, especially late game when you need to deal with final interceptors. He's a good card. I do like him. I kind of wish the deck wasn't so Blaster Blade reliant, but he's cool. And yes, I am annoyed that I don't have anything special besides just the regular arts because I don't like spending money. 2 copies of Conjure of Mithril. This is another one of my more controversial choices, or everyone gives me shit for it. I like him. Honestly, the fact that you can get a grade 2, which usually ends up being another sort of techie card in here, the fact that you can just get another grade 2 while you're on grade 2 can really come in handy. Sometimes when you're on grade 3, you can use this to call an Akane, and also you do that in 2 as well. It just can really be helpful for field building. Yeah, he's a 9K. Yeah, his effect is heavy. And yeah, he's not always helpful, but when he comes in handy, he can really save my ass, and he's done that more than once. Only 2 Akane, space is tight. Really, honestly, 2 I think is enough. I feel like whenever it gets late in the game, for some weird reason, Pongal always seems to go first. So I think 2 is good. Obviously, what it does is self-explanatory. Call the Pongal, get a soul charge, then extra 3k with the boosting. I wish we had better high beasts than just that. Then we have Knight of Silence Gallatin. This is a one-of, just kind of the one random one-of spot. I might bump Akane up to 3 one of these days if I feel it's necessary, but I like him. 10k base, 10,000 shield can sometimes come in good handiness. And again, like, you get him out pretty easily with Mithril, so he does come up. Again, he could go at any point. 2 copies of Sage of the Archduran. When you get a force marker around this guy, he swings for 25k when you're in a decent position. That's great. He also doesn't have an on-call effect like Blaster Blade or Akane, so you can just throw him out whenever and just beat down. Which again, as always in the case of Royals, you always want to do. Grade 3s, 2 copies of Alfred Early. I only have 3 of the other 2, respectively, so Alfred Early is still kind of needed, and just in general, he does come in handy. If you have Blaster Blade and Soul, which you do a lot of times because he's always the one you ride on, he does useful, and I like the fact that he can also call Blaster Blades from hand. He gets them from the Soul, you get extra resources, you get draw. Blaster Blade gets 10k. He is a good grade 3. That being said, I do wonder if maybe one of these days I should just bite the bullet, buy another Alfred or something like that, and bump him out. But we'll see about that in the future. Next, we have probably my favorite grade 3, King of Knights Alfred. Some consider him a little lackluster when compared to Waterfall or Imperial Daughter and even the Riser guy. But honestly, he really does synergize well with the rest of the deck. Calling a Blaster Blade's greatest advantage is thinning the deck. You're getting yourself just that ever closer chance of getting a trigger, a nice shuffle, and hey, the fact that he is 10k, that he gains 10k for the Blaster Blade means you can play around with your hand a bit more. You don't always need a booster behind your Vanguard immediately to just have him swing better. A lot of people I know elect to either play Wingle just to work more with the Blaster Blade, or the Horse to boost to grade 3, and I like neither of those cards. So yeah, having just the extra 10k, the fact that he basically is gotten the 10k from a force marker without needing a force marker means you can put the force marker in other places, just make huge mucho columns. And even though Royal Paladins maybe can't make the most powerful columns and maybe the most powerful boards in the game, they can do it, say it with me, consistently. And I'd rather be able to just turn after turn swing with big ones than make a big power play that could just not get me anywhere. And then finally, my most controversial card in the deck, at least as far as I'm concerned, Triple Soul Saver. Why? Because, well, I don't really like Soul Saver, because it sucks when you open it. It does nothing early game. It does nothing to gain you advantage, and I swear to God, every time I use its Soul Charge effect, I think I always Soul Charge a trigger. But that being said, get it out late game, it wins you the game. It's basically a win condition. Even going at it when your opponent's at 4 damage can come in handy, so it is a good card, but I feel like it's always the one that kind of screws me over, if that makes any sense. Finally, just showing off the force markers. 2 of the one you get in the trial deck, 1 of the Blaster Blades, 1 of the Aichis, and 2 Sayakamikis. Why? I have no idea. We all use proxy force markers at my local, and these were kind of just sitting around. They're blue. She kind of looks like Aichi in a weird way. and these are just kind of fun to have, because what else is anyone using Y Schwartz cards for? Am I right, people? So anyways, that was the deck profile. All in all, I'm really happy with the way the deck played. It did a great job. I can't complain too much. They were all close matches, but hey, I got the win in the end, and it keeps the match fun. Would I change anything? Maybe put in another Akane, maybe mix around with the grade 3 lineup, bump up the Alfreds, maybe even bump down the Soul Savers. I don't know. But what are your thoughts on Royals? Do you think they're as bad as some people claim they are? Do you think they could be better, though? Tell me that below, and as always, click to like, click to subscribe, and let me know if you'd like to see more content like this.